back to the podcast. Today we're going to take a little bit of a different turn. Some interesting things happened over the weekend I feel like we need to discuss, or at least I need to get my opinion out there on. To start, on Friday, Derek Chauvin, the cop who supposedly killed George Floyd, was stabbed and was recorded on having to have medical treatment for life-saving injuries. It's amazing that happens just on the eve of the initial case getting leaked out and seeing how much of a clown case it actually was. Derek Chauvin was found guilty and was to serve 20 plus years for the death of George Floyd when, according to the initial autopsy report, he had nothing to do with his death. His death was an overdose due to the fentanyl he swallowed 20 minutes prior to his incarceration. According to the Daily Wire and Associated Press, life-saving measures were given on Friday to save Derek Chauvin's life, even though he was supposed to be in...
I'll get him.
Shit, I was on such a good roll. Fuck you, King. He died under the circumstances of the fentanyl that he ingested, rather more than the actions that Derek Chauvin took to arrest him after George Floyd was being uncooperative in police custody. As a result of that sham of a trial, Derek Chauvin was thrown in prison for his murder, which was not actually a murder because no murder happened. George Floyd killed himself via the fentanyl he swallowed. According to the Daily Wire and the Associated Press, Derek Chauvin was stabbed on Friday, and life-saving measures were performed to save his life, which to me that sounds weird that he just got stabbed as the information of the trial is being slowly leaked out and things being slowly confirmed that says, hey, Derek Chauvin did not kill this man. Even the autopsy report shows that he had no contributing factor to his death. However, there are plenty of statements from government officials that said if they didn't arrest him, they were afraid the city would burn, which they did anyway. Going back to the statement, Derek Chauvin's lawyer, Eric Nelson, asked many times for him to be put in self-isolation because he was worried about this kind of a thing happening. And it was not fulfilled. Earlier this year, Derek Chauvin's case went through the appeal process through the U.S. court because, and let's be fair here, Derek Chauvin was not given a fair trial. It was a very public trial, a very emotional trial. It was a very intense trial, and we all knew he was going to hang for it, whether he was truly guilty or not. As I said earlier this year, there was an appeal to the U.S. State Court to help review the trial and give Derek Chauvin a new trial. And it just so happens that after all this, he gets stabbed in court. Funny how that works. Earlier this year, Derek Chauvin's case was taken to the Supreme Court as an appeal to see if he can get a fair and consistent trial, now that the emotions have somewhat settled. I mean, Black Lives Matter is still out there causing trouble, and we still don't know what happened to all the millions that were raised in the name of George Floyd, but that's neither here nor there. Instead, what we are looking at is a new trial going to Supreme Court. However, according to the same Daily Wire article, as of last week, that was denied. And then days later, Derek Chauvin gets stabbed and almost dies. It's a bit of a coinkydink, if you ask me.
Coinkydink?
You think that'll be good for the camera?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, let's go into my personal opinion on this thing here, because I think there was a grave misjustice done for Derek Chauvin and his family and the cops involved. This poor man was put on trial for a crime he did not commit, and it's clear with all the autopsy findings that was it. The media pickpocketed camera footage of what happened at the time to spin the narrative that Derek Chauvin was a cold-blooded murderer. And this poor guy now has to spend 20 years in jail and he had an attempt on his life, and it's seeming like he's not going to have an appeal allowed for his case, which to me is a bigger misjustice than what happened to George Floyd. Tragic. No one likes seeing a man die, but facts must be facts here. He was a criminal. He had a record of beating women, laundering money, selling fentanyl. He was not the good man that everyone tries to make him sound like. He was just a tool for BLM to make their money, and that's unfortunately what happened. I know this is going to turn into a BLM rant because of the content, and I will regulate myself on that. However, it's something that we have to draw attention to. 2 men's lives were ruined and lost for this, and millions of dollars were made. Nothing was fair here. It makes you have to wonder, as I said before, BLM made money. Derek Chauvin's spending 20 years in prison for killing a man, and George Floyd and his family's got nothing. George Floyd's family barely got any of that BLM money that was donated or raised for his sake. And now Derek Chauvin is not even guaranteed a fair trial. To me, that seems a little screwed up. Like, you could be the next George Floyd. I could be the next George Floyd. And some company somewhere is going to make money that we're never going to see. Kind of irks me a little bit. But we can't dwell on that. We just want to hope that this never happens again. Hope that we can throw 2022, 2021, and take it as a learning lesson from everything we saw, that we cannot trust the media. You can barely trust what you see on your local TV because it's all biased. Everything you see has been circulated, watered down, and formed to fit a narrative of whatever that network's political leanings are. And that sucks. That's sad. On to the next topic. A libertarian has been elected president of Argentina. And I'm going to explain to you why that's a good sign for things here in America. I will draw you that comparison. Javier Milei is a very center to right-leaning politician. He is very soft on political issues such as drugs, abortion, but he's also hard on crime. He's hard on government spending. He's hard on political corruption. I mean, we're talking about a man here whose political slogan was him walking around with a chainsaw saying he's cutting the parliament. Not a bad idea. Most of your mainstream media are calling him a far-right extremist. If he was a far-right extremist, he'd be wanting to donate money to Ukraine. If he was a far-right extremist, he'd be working in the interest of Lockheed Martin or Rockwell. Not this guy. He wants to make Argentina great again. He stole that slogan from Donald Trump, and it's a good slogan. It's a great slogan when your country's inflation rate is 183%. It's a great slogan when the left hates you simply for trying to fix your economy. Because obviously there's been decades of Argentinian corruption within their own politics, which was always left-leaning, far more left-leaning than we ever saw here in the United States. But that's an interesting point. We'll talk about that in another video. The problem with Argentina is they are so far in debt that they have no choice but to look for an alternative. They have to be friendly towards the United States. They have to be. Because they need something with substance to back their dollar, because their dollar has nothing. The Argentinian peso is worth nothing. So, as the president-elect, Javier Milei says that he wants to join forces with the United States. He wants to become one of our greatest allies, which would benefit everybody. It's stupid that the left thinks that this is a bad idea, or he is a fascist, or he is a far-right extremist. No, he's not. He's just a goofball that sits in the middle of the spectrum, which is what Argentina needs. And the polls, and obviously him getting elected shows it. The people were tired of the left-wing politics that were going on in Argentina. Now, if you want to compare that to here, that'll be great for us to have a friendly ally in South America for once. For the last couple years, the politics in South and Latin America have been dicey at best. We've got all kinds of drug cartels running the shows down there. We've got paramilitary groups protecting the cartel's interests. And we finally get a leader that says, hey, we need America's help. And for some reason, the left doesn't seem to like that. It's like they want drugs coming in. It's like they want illegal immigration coming in. Think about that. My reaction is, this is good for us. It's good for Argentina. I'm glad to see him being successful. The last topic I want to talk about today is this fad right now that Americans have seemed to pick up is apparently Osama bin Laden was the good guy. Over the weekend and all of last week, my TikTok and my Snapchat reels were all full of people saying that Osama bin Laden was right if you read his letter to America. And then they proceed to pickpocket information out of that. And I will say, he was right, an eighth of his letter. America is a superpower. America does have a history of intervening in foreign affairs. We do have a right, and he says it's a problem in his letter. I think it's a right to protect our own interests. That's what countries do. But it's amazing how many of these young leftist, I won't even say leftist, I'll say liberal, or you know what, uneducated TikTokers who weren't even alive to watch the towers fall. One of my earliest memories was watching those towers fall. I remember watching the news in the days following as the numbers went up in casualty rates. 3,000 Americans died that day. And to hear this next generation of kids, and I will call them kids, these kids in college reading this letter thinking they're enlightened because they're like, oh my God, Osama bin Laden was right. No, he wasn't. He was the orchestrator of one of the greatest tragedies on American soil. And it boils my blood to see that years later, people are like, oh yeah, he was right. Osama bin Laden also in this letter mentioned about how we deserved to die because we were infidels. He said that we were we were enemies in the eyes of the Quran because we did not accept Sharia law, which echoes back to another situation that we dealt with early in America. This was nothing new. In the late 1700s, early 1800s, actually 1803 if I remember correctly. Don't hold me to that, but I believe that's correct. We had a similar fight. We had United States sailors and merchants being captured, murdered, or even sold into slavery. And when asked to stop by Presidents John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, these Barbary states, who were Islamic states, said, no, we are not going to stop because according to our belief, according to our law, since you guys do not follow the Quran, you are infidels. You are inferior beings. We have the right to have power over you. And we proceeded to do what America does. We sent the Marines and we kicked ass. If you ever wondered why the Marines are called leathernecks, that is why. Because the Barbary warriors were notorious for trying to lop heads off in a single cut. The Marines said, fuck that. We're going to wear leather around our necks so that way you can't do that. And that's where the term leatherneck came from. And it was the first real outside conflict that the Marines would have. And they did a pretty damn good job. So when I see kids and TikTokers and all these people glorifying Osama bin Laden, it goes to show me the ignorance and the lack of history that is being taught and the ignorance being accepted. This is an issue we've had in our country or not just in our country, but in the world for a long time. And you cannot negotiate with 8th century barbarians, as Ben Shapiro would put it. Because that's exactly what they are. They follow 8th century laws. They demand that the rest of the world try to act that way. And I may not be the most progressive guy, but let's face it, we've had a lot of progress since the 8th century. Cleo's telling me to sign off. So, with that said, stay strong, watch your six, have a nice night.